Yeah, well, like I said, there we are. Well, good afternoon and welcome, everyone. Deputy Mayor Tom Hutchinson, and I'm Chair of the Committee of Adjustment meeting. Item number one, calling the meeting to order. It is 2 p.m. Today's May the 7th, Committee of Adjustment meeting. We do have quorum as identified by the committee members that are in attendance, and Member Hutchinson is regrets for this afternoon. For this meeting, we're using both audio and video. The meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the West Gray website at www.westgray.com. The technology for this meeting is being managed by the West Gray staff. So anybody virtual, if you could please refrain from clicking any buttons throughout the meeting, that would be good until you're prompted. Before we continue, Communications Coordinator, Ms. Noble, please provide an overview to members virtual. Thank you, or public.
Thank you. And through you, Deputy Mayor Hutchinson. Before I begin, at any point, if you get disconnected, you can dial 1-647-558-0588 and enter the ID for this meeting, which is 891-5626-2480. Both members of council and staff have been briefed on the various features of the Zoom meeting software and will be raising their hands physically to speak. For members of the public, if you require any technical assistance, please send a chat message to myself, Ashley Noble, Communications Coordinator, and I will attempt to assist you. It should be noted for members of the public that this meeting is taking place across 2 meeting platforms, both on Zoom as well as being live streamed on YouTube. Public participation, if any, must be done through Zoom and cannot be done through YouTube at this time.
Thank you. Item number 2 on today's agenda is purpose of the meeting. I'm going to get Secretary Treasurer Ms. Williams, please provide your comments.
The purpose of the meeting today is to allow the presentation of 2 minor variance applications and 1 consent to sever, and to allow the interested members of the public the opportunity to ask questions and to offer comments regarding the applications. On or before April 15th, 2024, notice of this public hearing was posted at the subject properties and circulated to the prescribed persons and bodies and property owners within 60 meters of these subject lands. A public registry for the applications is available by email at communications@westgray.com. And if any member of the public would like to be notified in writing of the decision on one of the applications, they are to provide their name and mailing address by email or via the meeting chat function for the corresponding registry. This will entitle one to be advised of the possible Ontario Land Tribunal hearing in the event the decision on the application is appealed.
Thank you. Item number 3 is disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Committee members, do you have anything to declare at this time? And if not, if one should arise anytime during the meeting, of course, you can declare at that time. Item number 4 is the approval of the minutes. 4.1, we're looking for the approval of the minutes from April the 2nd, 2024. So 2024 Committee of Adjustment hearing. Looking for a recommendation to approve. I have Member Noon, Member Eccles. Comments or questions on the minutes, errors or omissions to need to bring forward? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor, if you just raise your hand, please. I see all members are in favor. There's none opposed. That motion is carried. Okay, item number 5 is our first application today, and that's application number A04-2024, Hamel 341348, concession to NDR part lot 17. 5.1 is the report from our planning staff, and I'm going to hand the mic over to Planner Smith to take us through that. If you record, you could also provide any written comments or statements that come up until such time as the start of this meeting. Thank you, Planner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you mentioned, A04-2024 for Hamel, a minor variance to allow for a accessory building structure with a maximum floor area of 111.5 square meters or 1,200 square feet, whereas the bylaw currently restricts size for buildings and structures, accessory buildings and structures to 92.9 square feet. Can we please? We're going to take a quick look at the proposed property on the schedule. Let that come up on the screen. Thank you. Yep, no, that's correct. What we have on the screen and on the monitor is the air photo of the property. You can see the house on the right-hand side. the bottom left-hand corner of the screen is the proposed accessory building at proposed 1,200 square feet with the setbacks proposed to the lot lines on both sides. We're going to go down one more page, which will scroll in a little bit on there we go. Oh, wait, right there. Just a little bit of a blow up on the property to show you a little bit better what's happening in the corners in terms of the setbacks on the property. You can see from the air photo, although it isn't screened out or blown out, is that we do have an older barn on the one side of the property and an agricultural field surrounding us on the other side of the property where the accessory structure would be located against. Thank you. When we take a look at the minor variance, we take a look at, highlights, again, 111.5 square meters or 1,200 square feet, the proposed building on just a slightly over 1 acre lot. There are no other houses or sensitive uses in close proximity to the building. Would not interfere with any of the use on the abutting property, agricultural lot. We don't see any problems with combines, cropping, anything in that matter. It doesn't go over the property line. It's set back to the setback requirements of the bylaw. It's just on the size that we're looking at here. We have no issues at all with neighboring uses in terms of the aggregate extraction or any of the other surrounding houses. And there are no environmental or other features like that anywhere within 120 meters of the proposed building itself. We have not received any comments from the public in terms of written as of the writing of the report, which went to your package over a week ago. We did receive comments back from West Gray Public Works, West Gray Building with no concerns, from the County of Gray with no comments, and from Saugeen Valley with no concerns either. When you look at the application for minor variance, the first place we start is what's called the provincial policy statement. And this is Provincial Policy Statement 2020. It provides general direction on all land use planning in Ontario, everything from houses to commercial uses to even sometimes things like accessory buildings and structures. In this particular case, we take a look at the principal land use in the area, which is agriculture. Agriculture does permit houses, and it also permits the accessory buildings and structures to go along with agriculture and with houses. In that regard, we have no issues at all in terms of provincial policy for the property. There's no issues with aggregate extraction or primary aggregate in the area. We're far enough back. It's an accessory structure. We're not building houses. We're not building multiple houses. So we don't have a sensitive use in that regard. And overall, we find that the application is consistent with the relevant policies of the provincial policy statement. The Planning Act sets out 4 tests for a minor variance. The first test is whether or not the minor variance maintains the general intent and purpose of an official plan. In this particular case, the official plan we look at is the County of Gray that applies to the property. Within the Gray County official plan, the lands are designated, it's the word we use in this particular case, as both agriculture and rural. It's got a small split on it that runs to the property. And we also have an aggregate constraint on the lot and an aggregate extraction or aggregate pit within about 275 meters from the lot. The county official plan does, of course, permit residential dwellings and accessory buildings, such as garages and sheds, on properties in both the agriculture and rural areas. So we find no issues with that with the official plan. And the accessory building is not an sensitive use in terms of aggregate or being disturbed by an aggregate use, or on the other hand, impeding an aggregate use from expanding in the future. If anything does, it's the existing house rather than the accessory building in this particular case. And there's also other existing houses in the neighborhood too that have impacts on aggregate extraction. So there's no issues there at all. We do find that the application does maintain the intent and purpose of the County of Gray official plan. The second test is whether or not the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw is met. The lot is split, as I mentioned, between an A1 zone and an A2 rural zone. There's no natural environment or any other constraints on the property. The accessory building will be located in the A1 portion of the lot, and that A1 portion of the lot does again permit accessory buildings and structures. On lots that are less than 2 acres in size, of which this one does fall under section 6.14 of the zoning bylaw, restricts again the maximum floor area to 92.9 meters squared, whereas here we're looking at 111, not significantly larger, but it does require the variance to be taken a look at. Accessory in this particular case does not mean that the accessory building needs to be smaller than the house, for example. You can have accessory buildings on properties, and I give an example such as a building supply store, where we have a building supply where you go inside, you pay for your your materials and all the rest of it, but their outside storage, their accessory buildings are relatively huge in order to contain all their stock. So accessory doesn't always mean smaller than the principal building itself. That's not necessarily the case here, but when we take a look at that concept of what we're looking out for, we're not looking at the accessory building has to be smaller than the house. No, it doesn't need to be smaller than the house. It's an accessory to a building or to a structure. That's where we're at in this particular case. There are instances in many cases where people are looking to have on their rural properties in particular, places to store inside large RVs, boats, et cetera, and that's where we begin to see the larger accessory buildings coming into play in West Gray. Okay, the intent and purpose of the bylaw provisions regarding maximum size of accessory building is to establish some degree of reasonable standard, not reasonable standards on the front end. Okay, and we apply across all the zones. Then we have the ability to come in and take a look at site-specific exemptions like we're doing here to see whether or not it fits within the property and whether or not it has, again, other implications to anybody else in that regard. And in that regard, we do see that in this particular case, the lot's not going to feel overbuilt. It's not a large increase to the maximum. There's plenty of area on the property for amenities. There's plenty of area still for the septic and the well. So in that regard, we don't see any issues at all with the maintaining the general intent of the zoning bylaw. Is the application desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land or buildings? This test refers to the appropriateness of the development, given the existing conditions of a property and how the development integrates or into and works with the surrounding contiguous lands. Accessory building, again, is an appropriate use, is in keeping with surrounding land uses. There's any number of accessory buildings on surrounding lands in that regard. The only difference here, again, is this slightly increased size and large in size. There's no evidence that the variance would have any impact on the usage of the property itself or any impact on the surrounding properties in that regard either. The fourth test is whether or not the application is minor in nature. This test refers to the overall development proposal, and if it is considered minor in nature. The test is not merely a numerical determination where if it's 100% over the size, or whatever it is, that it's not minor. Minor is not looked at in terms of just mathematical calculations. In this particular case, we take a look at four particular things in terms of whether or not the impact of the use is minor, and that's whether or not there's an impact on the environment, whether or not there's an impact on the enjoyment and use of the abutting agricultural property, and whether or not there's any impact on the functioning of government, such as the municipality, the county, or provincial governments in terms of doing its work on roadways or collecting garbage or things like that. In this particular case, we don't feel that there's any negative impact on any of those particular functions or uses. And I'm of the opinion that the application is minor. In that regard, we do recommend the application be approved, subject to the conditions that we established in the draft decision sheet for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Planner Smith. Very detailed report for that one for sure. 5.2 is the verbal comments. There's two parts to this: verbal comments by the committee members. And once that's completed, we will turn it to the public for their comments. So under 5.2.1, committee members, do you have anything, any questions or comments at this stage? Seeing none from the committee, I am going to turn it to the public then under 5.2.2. And Ms. Nova, could you please provide members, well, no members, but the public that are attending virtually, how they can participate in this meeting? And when you're done that, if you can let us know if anybody is virtually looking to speak. And once we're completed that, and I'll turn it to the public in attendance. Ms. Noble.
As noted, at the opening of the meeting, public participation must be done through Zoom. Members of the public joining virtually wishing to participate in this portion of the meeting may do so in one of two ways. If you have joined via phone, press *9 to raise your hand. This will let us know that you would like to speak. Alternatively, *9 can also be used to lower your hand. If you have joined virtually, you can either raise your hand by clicking either the blue or yellow hand icon located in the bottom corner of your screen, or by sending a chat message to myself, Ashley Noble, Communications Coordinator, either stating that you would like to speak or what you would like read into the record on your behalf.
Okay. Nobody has received any text or anything? Nothing? Okay, so we will move beyond the virtual participation of that And I will be looking for anybody in attendance in the public here today who would like to speak to this application. And you can just raise your hand. Okay, sir, if you could just go over to the podium here. And I'll get you to give you some simple instructions. You will need to state your name for the record, and we'll get you going. When you sit at the desk, sir, you'll see there's a gray button. You just have to push that to get the mic on. For me. Okay, if you state your name for the record, that'd be great. And the
Yes,
floor is yours.
My name is Jim Magwood. I'm with Magwood Family Farms. We are the adjacent lot owner to the parcel about which the minor variance is being dealt with. We are immediately to the west. The quote, old barn, as was referred to by Mr. Smith, is actually our barn. While I don't have a huge issue with the minor variance about being 1,200 versus 1,000 feet, there are a few other questions that I have about this that I don't have any information for. And whether the applicant or someone can give me some clarity on this. The puzzling part to me is that, as the applicant is well aware, we do operate cattle on the adjacent property. They're there during the summer months for about 6 months. And they have access to all around the barn. They have the barn. The barn is an integral part of summer pasture because it provides shade, especially during climate change. So it's a little, I wonder why the reason was chosen to place the building on next to a livestock operation when there not any opportunity to place it anywhere else on the property. There's nothing but cropland to the other side, no cattle close to it or anything. I'd just like some clarity. I'd also like some clarity as to what the purpose of the accessory building is. I'm assuming from the drawing it has something to do with vehicles because of the doors. There's nothing, I haven't got any information as to what the purpose of the building is. So these are sort of simple questions, but they can impact upon the quality of life that people down the road may have. The reason I refer to that is we've had no problems with the Hamel owners. There's been no problems over the years. They know our cattle are there. There's been no issues. But we are a multi-generational farm, and our operation, we find, outlives adjacent property owners. We'll be still there when the next homeowner is there, and they may not view it as amicably as what the Hamels are. So that point of good planning is to avoid conflict. And I'm just wondering if there's anything can be addressed at this point in time to prevent conflict possibly down the road. It may not happen. I don't know.
Okay, well, what I'm gonna do, if I can just get you to turn your mic off, sir, for now, Mr. Megwood, anyway. There's two questions that were kind of asked from what I could capture out of that. So I'm gonna go to Planner Smith for a response, and then we'll come back to you, Mr. Megwood.
Well, I'll start with the second one. The zoning bylaw sets out in general terms, concepts about an accessory building structure can be used for. Period. You know, we're allowed to have home occupations, you know, and I won't say specifically for this building, okay? We're allowed to have home occupations, home industries and all the rest of it as of right on the lot. That's what the zoning bylaw does. So can the building be used to store cars? Yes, definitely within the bylaw. Can you go out there and have a birthday party for your kid? Sure. right? Can you start a iron smelting operation? No. So, those are obviously the extremes, okay? So as long as the building is used within the concept of the zoning bylaw, and it doesn't say that specifically only use it to park a car, only use it for X, Y, and Z, okay? It's an accessory building in that sense of the word. You begin to deviate from that, you start running a business that's not allowed under the home industry or home occupation, then you run up against the zoning bylaw. But until then, okay, the use of the building as proposed in the application is for accessory building and structure. And we don't ask after that. If we had an inclination that they were going to run some kind of other business, then we would pursue that with them at that time, saying, are you moving your construction business home? And that's where you're going to do it. But that's not what we were hearing from this particular type of application. The second thing about the location, when we take a look at, and we've done this on another one, where we believe that the building gets to be of certain size, larger. So here we went from 92.9 to 111. Okay, it is bigger than the bylaw. There's no doubt about it, which is why we're here. But the setbacks that we require of the bylaw, we haven't increased because we didn't significantly increase the size of the structure. Okay, otherwise we probably would have pushed it back like we did with another application over about a month or so ago with yourselves and saying, listen, this is very big that you're going to. We want a bit more room on the side. Here, we didn't have that room. We felt there was more than enough room along the setbacks that come along with the bylaw to maintain the building while standing on their property. All right, that's one of the most important things we take a look at, and therefore the bylaw itself. Okay, if we went back and stood back and said, listen, enough of this, I'm going to build 92.9, then the building can go exactly where it's going. Okay, in that regard, that's the right given to the property owner as a owner of land in the municipality. So here at the 111, we didn't feel that there was any need to increase or to move, in that particular word, the buildings to somewhere else on the lot, which was not desired by the applicant.
Thank you, Planner Smith. Mr. Magwood, back to you, sir. Do you have any other comments or questions?
I was not questioning. I wanted some clarity as to why that was chosen. I was not questioning the decision of, or the right of the applicant to place a building wherever they wanted on their property. I was asking to get some understanding as to why that was the chosen site over a, for lack of better terminology, a site with less potential for conflict.
Follow up? Okay.
Not really, Mr. Chair. No, sorry. Yeah.
I just seen you on your screen. I didn't know if you were looking at something, so, all right. Any other comments or questions, sir, at this time? Okay, thank you. All right, is there any other members of the public that are in attendance today that would have any comments or questions? Let's go ahead, please. And we'll get you again. Same thing, it's the gray buttons there. If you can just state your name for the record. And once we do that, the floor is yours. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Chair. Thank you, Kelly. Edward Dozman, budding property owner to the application from Hamel, is it? Yeah. My concern is it's going to eventually become a nanny or granny. Building. And I had spoke to Mr. Smith. I thought at first they were looking for more land. I was willing to lease them extra property if they needed it to meet the bylaw rather than do a variance. I got no problem if they stay within the bylaw for size. And then we'll deal with anybody living with it down the road. And as Mr. Magwood said, I've been in operation on that property for 17 years and 25 years on the property that I owned south of that, which was the previous Bucks Crossing Golf Course. And I'm not going anywhere either. And I'd like clarity too as to why that location was chosen. So that's all I have to say at this time.
Okay, thank you. So it's more of a comment than a question. I think Planner Smith has responded to it. If you'd like more clarity on it, I could ask Planner Smith, but I think that question was asked, but we'll certainly direct it over there if you're seeking for further information on that. I was more receiving this as a comment, unless you have a clear question, sir. You have to use the mic, please. The reason we do that, sir, just so everyone, it's just because we do have members of the public virtual and they cannot hear. We all have to work off the mic system. So thank you.
Fully
Go ahead.
understand. And Ms. Ham already has 2 accessory buildings on her property for storage. And I did previously store Ms. Hamill's other belongings in an area on my property. So I've always had a good relation with Ms. Hamill. Okay?
Any comments? Is there any other members in attendance in the public here that would have any comments or questions on this application before us? Before I turn it to the committee for a decision? Okay, seeing none, we are going to be going on to item number 5.3, and that is the decision. So I'll be looking to the committee for a decision on what direction would the committee like to take with this application. And again, we do have a recommendation that's on the file here. So as provided by the planner. So I'm looking for whoever seconder to do move that recommendation or anything else that you may have. Members of the committee, I'm looking for one either. Thank you, Member Townsend. Go ahead.
There we go. There we go. I will move the recommendation as presented in our planning document, please.
Thank you, Member Townsend. So we have it moved. I'm looking for a seconder, please. Member Noon, you are seconding that? Okay. Is everyone clear on the recommendation as provided by the planner? Or do you have any comments or questions? Again, we have a motion on the floor, so we'll be speaking directly to or specifically to the recommendation. Okay, see no comments or questions on it. Everyone's clear on the recommendation. We'll call the vote. All those members that are in favor, if you could raise your hand. I see all members are in favor. There's none opposed. That motion has carried. Under number 5.4, next steps. Planner Smith, please provide your comments.
The Secretary Treasurer will issue a notice of decision of which there is an appeal period within that. Only certain members of the agencies and the applicant may appeal the decision of the Committee of Adjustment. Upon the expiration of the finishing of the appeal period, they'll be able to come in and apply for a building permit for the building as proposed.
Planner Smith. Okay, that completes the item number 5. We'll move on to item number 6 on today's agenda, and that is application number A05 2024-579575 Ontario Inc., 315 Arthur Street, Survey Edges Park, Block CRP 17R112, parts 11 to 13. So the next thing we'll do is go to 6.1, and that'll be the report from the planning staff. Smith, if you could just read your information that you have available, including any comments or I guess anything that you've received up to today's meeting that's not posted. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you mentioned, A05 2024-579-575 Ontario Inc. for an application on 315 Arthur Street to facilitate the construction of a new dwelling with a reduction in a front yard to 7 meters and a reduction in a rear yard to also 7 meters. And maybe we'll take a quick look if we could, please. Thank you. On the screen is a schedule of the proposal. And what you're seeing in the blue outline is the what we call a proposed lot line. What we'll see in the front is 7 meters in red on a building envelope and 7 meters at the rear on the building envelope. So that's what we're looking at. On the left-hand side of the screen or of the drawing is Arthur Street itself. And on the right-hand side, you can see a set of hedges that borders onto the property onto the east side. Thank you. So the lot in which the minor variance is applied to doesn't actually exist yet. So when we say setbacks to lot lines, they kind of exist and they kind of don't. And when I say that is because we have a consent that is in process, been approved by the committee, and we're still waiting for final approval. So not all of the lot lines exist at the moment. That is not a big deal. We can put some conditions of which we have into the decision in regards to that lots to be created. That consent B3323 was heard on February 6th by the committee, and conditions were established by the committee, and they're still working through those conditions in order to finalize the consent. We are able to bring forward the minor variance, for your consideration, because we have tied the minor variance together with the consent so that it all works together as one package, so that we have a lot, we have services that were required by by condition of consent, and it all comes together into one full package at the end of the day. So it's a little bit different, which is why the conditions you see on this particular application speak to the previous application for the consent in that regard and ties it all together. So to mention the proposal is to reduce to 7 meters on the front, what we require is 7.6, and a reduction to 7 meters on the rear, 7 meters on the rear, where we also require 7.6. So there's not a big difference, obviously, again, in these particular numbers. We did circulate the application to agencies. Municipal Public Works, West Grey Public Works, again, mentioned the municipal water and sewer is required. We can't have a septic system as well. And that's fully understood. And again, the applicants are working through that with Public Works in terms of getting the construction done and the drawings approved and so on and so forth for that. West Grey Building, County of Grey, Saugeen Valley, no concerns at all. And as a writer writing the report, we have not received any comments from the public. We will review the application versus the provincial policy statement. Its provincial policy is relatively simple in this regard. It's within an urban area. Housing is allowed within an urban area, obviously. Reductions in such as minor variances aren't specifically talked about from the PPS, but overall, there's no issues with the house itself. Section 1662 of the provincial policy does talk again about our sewer and water requirements in a fully serviced area, and reiterates again that development and intensification shall be on full municipal services. And again, we've made arrangements or be making arrangements for that to come about. We have the 4 tests of a minor variance that we take a look at. The first one is the maintaining the general intent of the official plan. Here we're talking about the settlement area for Durham. Within that regard, we're designated residential, housing not a problem. Again, the sewer and water comes up in that particular section also. And overall, as long as we get the sewer and water coming in as part of the consent and tie it all together, then everything is good in terms of the official plan. The zoning bylaw, what is the purpose of the zoning bylaw? Why do we have front yard and rear yard setbacks? We do go through a number of reasons. We do try to establish a standard facade on the street so we're not all over the place. We don't want to make sure there's enough room between the front facade and the street in order to have services, in order to have some green space, make sure that when the snow plow goes by, you don't throw snow into their front window. We also try to reduce the amount of hard service we have on lots, so we do have some of that green space, some of that climate change ability, and we do look for some stormwater infiltration on it. Overall, those small reductions from 7.6 to 7.5 won't have an impact on any of those particular items. The third test is desirable for the appropriate development of the use of the land. And again, we're talking about the appropriateness of the development, given the existing conditions. The residential building itself is not a problem. We have neighborhood that's going on in here. There's no evidence that the variance would have any impact on any of the surrounding land uses or affect any of the enjoyment overall in that regard. And the fourth test is minor in nature. Again, we're not taking a look at the numbers game here. We're taking a look at whether or not we have impacts on the environment, whether or not we have impacts on our neighbors again, and whether or not we have an impact on municipal functions. In this regard, the 7.6 won't have any impact on the ability of the municipality to do the road work that's going to be required together with the applicant, or possibly sidewalks or things like that in the future. It's a short street, so probably not. It does allow enough room for a street tree in the front, those kind of things that we look for in order to deal with our climate change. And we don't see any impact on the enjoyment of the surrounding properties, in particular in this case at the rear with the 7.5, sorry, the 7.6, the 7 won't be noticed in that regard. Overall, we don't see have any issues with the minor variance. We recommend that the committee adjustment or approve the minor variance with consideration of the conditions that we've provided. Thank you.
Thank you, Planner Smith. 6.2 on the agenda is verbal comments. 6.2.1 is committee members' comments. So committee members, do you have any comments at this time regarding this application? Comments or questions, if you will. I'll be looking for, and I will go to member Noon first. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I was just a question, is there sewer currently going down the street, or is it something that because it's new and the availability is coming off of Durham Road East, that they have to bring the sewer down to the property?
That is correct. They will have to bring the sewer down to the property, and the type of sewer kind of thing is been dealt with the Director of Public Works and with the applicant, and they're working through that with their engineers to finish the drawings off and so on and so forth. It will provide sewer and water to 3 lots. This one is if I call it the third lot down, okay, the one in the middle with the existing house, and the one at the north end. So those 3 lots. It will also provide ability for the other side of the street, I believe, also, but we're not looking at that at this time. Right now, this is sewer and waters for the 3 lots, and then we'll see where we go with the other ones.
So it's not mandatory that the others have to connect at this time then?
No. The Arthur Street is a little bit more complicated because of its slope and so on and so forth. And when we took a look at the engineering, probably requiring a force main and all the rest of it. So I think the Director of Public Works wants a little bit more time to figure out what's going to happen as the street as a whole. And in this particular case, though, that the ability and the recommendations from the engineers working with the applicants for a force main, I think is exactly where they're at. So, yeah.
You, any comments or questions from members of the committee before I turn it to the public? No? Okay, so we're going to move on now to 6.2.2, and this is members of the public. Again, I'm going to get Ms. Noble to explain how members of the public that are on virtually can ask a question. Ms. Noble, go ahead, please.
If you have joined via phone, press *9 to raise your hand. This will let us know that you would like to speak. Alternatively, *9 can also be used to lower your hand. If you have joined virtually, you can either raise your hand by clicking either the blue or yellow hand icon located in the bottom corner of your screen, or by sending a chat message to myself, Ashley Noble, Communications Coordinator, either stating that you would like to speak or what you would like read into the record on your behalf.
You can let us know if you have anybody who's typed a message or has their hand up virtually. Okay, seeing none, we're going to turn it to members of the public that are in attendance here. If we go to the desk here, go ahead, sir. When you get to the table, if you could state your name for the public, that would be great, and turn the mic on, and the floor is yours.
Alex Nyman on behalf of 579-575 Can-Do Homes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just like to give an update. The consent, like Planner Smith had said, we are working through that with the engineer to determine or finalize the plan for the services for the sewer and water. And once that's completed, then the consent can be finalized. And as far as the application for minor variance, I just have one request or a question that in the recommendations, that item number 4, that the municipal sewer and water services are both available at the property line at the time of building permit is issued. I would just request that we could change that to at the time of occupancy is granted, for the purpose that it takes about 4 days to do sewer and water work, or it takes about 6 to 8 months to build a house. So if we could proceed with the house building, and the services will be installed, and they don't hold up the house building. The other note on that is that the existing house is on a septic system, that the septic is on the property in question here. So it will be done fairly quickly in order to maintain services at that existing house. So that's it for me.
Thank you for your question, and I will go to Planner Smith. Do you have a response to that question? Un momento, which is fine. Yes, please take your time. And if it's, if we can't really do the recommendation, well, we could, it's hard to approve a recommendation with that kind of question out there.
Right. I will go back and talk about February, which unfortunately I wasn't able to be here. And I do think that the municipality and yourselves did grant a fair degree of consideration to the sewer and water requirement. We said it would be good for the municipality to have an understanding of what's going to be in the ground before we go and do consents. And the wisdom of the committee said, no, we can work at that at the same time. And that's what we've been doing. So here I guess we set a little bit harder line down, saying, I don't have a lot line. Okay. Which means I have not just a septic issue, you also have more than one house on the lot now also with no consent. So we are, been working through these particular issues and saying, listen, we're good with doing the minor variance. Let's get that paperwork out of the way. Okay, you're right. Okay, it takes a little bit of time, as you well know. But we and the director of public works would like to see the services in the ground and so on and so forth for that. So we know that it's finished. Unfortunately, I didn't know about the septic system. And then for some reason, I guess I assumed that the septic system was on the lot for the house that's existing there. Well, going to be on the lot for the house that was for there now. And that poses its own unique problems too, where we now are getting a building permit with a septic system, but the house is going over top of the septic system, theoretically. So we can't issue a building permit that way. Okay, there's an existing septic system there connected to it, and we're going to issue a building permit to put a house over top of the septic system. I think we're in very strange grounds, if I can use that word, on that. Put the services in the ground, okay? Get rid of the septic system, connect the existing house and so forth, and have that ability to do so, and get your building permit at that stage, and it is clean, if I can use that word also in that regard.
Thank you, Planner Smith. Just one more, do you have a follow-up or anything with that, or go ahead again? Welcome, sir. We're gonna have you state your name for the record and press great button.
Don Tremble. I'm the owner of the property. And the house that Alex was talking about, the septic system, will be emptied and unoccupied in 15 days. So it'll stay unoccupied until the services are done on the road. And all Alex is Alex is an employee of mine. He's the one building the house there. All we're trying to do is get away from building a house in the wintertime. Because if we don't get started, it takes 6 months. If we don't get started in June or July, he's in January. So that's all we're trying. We're not trying to ask for anything, just want to get under construction, because by the time we get the engineer, we're probably going to be a month and a half or 2 months out by the time we get the engineering and send this out for somebody to do. So we were just trying to speed the process up. And I own the properties on all 3 sides. So so that's why we're here. So we're not trying to, like, the other house will be unoccupied. So, and I understand you got to follow rules, and we appreciate you doing the 2 things at once. in construction, it's a time thing. It's like, and red tape delays cost a lot of money. And we've talked about this 100 times, where we want affordable and attainable housing. And in order to get that, it's delays. So yeah, there's rules, but sometimes there's got to be some common sense on stuff too. So that's why we're asking. If it can't be done, we'll dig the road up and we'll do the services. It's just we're going to ask for get stuff back quicker then too. And if that's what it's got to be, that's what it's got to be. So we appreciate you taking your time today.
Mr. Trumbull, do you have a response, Planner Smith?
So if you want to, do the horse trading would be, I can't horse trade, unfortunately, the septic system. You know what I mean? And he said, well, I'm not going to be living in a house, which means that when I cut off the pipe, then you don't need to worry about it. I don't know enough of the building code to say whether or not they can issue a building permit in that regard. Okay? Regardless of what the minor variance says, right? So that is a total and a no one for me. I can speak to, the clause here about when you can get a building permit, whether they can actually go and do that second part. I don't know at all, unfortunately. So the horse trade part, what a dumb, sorry, not an appropriate term maybe for planning, is that if we could get the agreement and the engineering and all the rest of it done, and the deposits done on the engineering work that's going to happen, the hole in the ground for the sewer and water, then maybe at that point we can issue a building permit. But until we have an agreement and the money for securities on that kind of thing, in other words, you dig a hole in the ground for the sewer and the water. Okay, you started that work. Obviously, we have a very good intention of putting it in the ground. Then I think the minor variance on that side of things can be tied to there, as opposed to fully available at the house.
Thank you, Planner Smith, and Mr. Trumbull, you have a response?
And that's very fair. We would do that. We'd have the agreement, everything in places. We're not going to dig the hole tomorrow, but we have the engineering being done. It's going to be sent to Jeff to be approved, and we definitely wouldn't have a problem with that. That's more than fair.
Thank you, Mr. Trumbull. Planner Smith, you have anything to add to that, or?
No, that's great. I'm just thinking about how to modify, for your wording, and we prefer to give you wording from ourselves rather than, sorry, do it off the cuff of our.
Yeah, I was gonna go, Josie, just take your time. So whatever we need to, we have the recommendation in front of us. So whatever we need to, if we have to strike something or add something or just make a minor changes, what I'd like to identify. Right, but I want to see if it's gonna take something, and then we'll go as a minute, but I'm gonna give him a chance. So take your time, Planner Smith. We'll just, we'll give you that ample time. Clerk Controller, you have the mic. Go ahead, sir.
Through you, Chair Hutchinson, just procedurally, for simplicity of this motion, if we just leave the motion as is for now, the planner and I will work on something and provide you with revised wording rather than moving this motion and then amending it after the fact. We'll work on something quickly.
And that's where I was kind of going towards. So it'll be a new recommendation then altogether, right? I think is what you're suggesting, Clerk.
Through you, Chair Hutchinson, perhaps not entirely altogether, but slightly modified from what you see before you.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll wait for that. And then whatever is taken out of that recommendation, because it's not moved or seconded, then we could just enter that as a new one. I don't think it'd be as amended, it'd be what we're reading. Is everybody good with that? Okay, so take your time. Yes, go ahead. Did you have a comment or questions regarding this application? Yeah, okay. Yeah, you just, good afternoon. If you could just press the gray button and state your name for the public, and the floor is yours.
My name is Margaret Latham, and we live at 325 Arthur Street North. 2 years ago, when they decided they were going to start working on Durham Road East, I came to the meeting and I was told then that the first year they were going to do from Garifraxa to that new little subdivision they put in. And when we were talking to somebody from the Works Department, they told me that this year, all they're going to do is resurface Durham Road East. We were told at that point that Durham Road, all the way out to Arthur Street, would be the third stage, which means that would be the third year. But now it would be the fourth year. So if that's the case, and we have water going down our street, but we do not have sewers. So that would mean that it wouldn't be for another 3 years before you would put sewers down Durham Road East, or Arthur Street. And so they want to build a house next to us. I have no problem with that. But the problem I have is that you're going to leave the house that's sitting there and the new house sit empty for 3 years until you put sewers down. Now, what condition is the houses going to be in by the time the third year comes around? Because according to what I've heard from the counselor in our area, there is nothing in the budget to put sewers down Arthur Street in the next 3 years. If that's not the correct information, I apologize, but that is what I've been told.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize, Planner Smith. I don't know if you captured the comment or the question there while you were drafting that new recommendation, but
Maybe I'll ask you, Mr. Chair, to summarize
Yeah.
Ms. Latham's comments, if you don't
so
mind.
just basically at a high level is the fact that any development or which we've heard is supposed to be third year. It's now into the fourth year, and with the new houses, there'll be no infrastructure there for basically water sewers. And that's based on a comment that had heard. So just looking to see if those houses are going to be, if the house is built, essentially, I believe is what you're saying, if it's going to, how long is it going to sit unoccupied without services? Is that?
And since the house that's there now is going to be empty at the end of this month, they're going to cut off the sewer, then that house is going to be empty for the 3 years until they put the sewers down our street. That is not really I don't understand that. The house will deteriorate.
So,
Yeah, Planner Smith, go ahead, please.
so Mr. Tremble and Mr. Newman have mentioned that we are working on the agreement to put in the sewer and the water for the house that exists now that Mr. Tremble mentioned. Right now, there is a full intention to do the work as soon as possible because, as Mr. Newman has mentioned, he wants to build this house this year. So I don't quite see where the 3 years is coming from. The sewer is going to run down in front of the existing house in order to get to Mr. Newman's. It's going to be available at the property line for connection. There's going to be a little bit of sewer pipe work that needs to be done on the property because the septic system goes kind of one way and the new sewer line's out the front. That's going to be maybe a little bit of work for 575, whatever the owner is. But there is full intention to connect all three and sizing for all three of those lots to the to a force main at this particular time. And like I said, Mr. Tremble certainly knows a little bit more about the engineering in that regard. So
You go ahead, ma'am.
So what you're saying is that I'm not getting a sewer.
that's correct. You're not getting a sewer at this time. No.
Why not?
Because the sewer work is being paid for in this particular case by these applicants, okay? They are not paying for everybody else's sewer
Where
work.
only are the others, there's only 2 houses on Durham
Right.
Road.
All right.
or
So when the,
Arthur Street.
right, so when the engineering is being done with the Director of Public Works, they'll be taking a look at the size of the engineering, so the size of the pipe, okay, both water and sewer. If if it works, they'll make the pipes large enough to service both sides of the street. But I won't know that until we finish the work, okay? Because it's their cost that they're going to be doing to make the pipe bigger. So it's certainly within the discussions that are going on, okay? But the connection of anybody to a larger pipe is going to be at the other people's cost, of course. Certainly not at these applicants' cost. So if you live across the road and we have a new sewer pipe that kind of goes in the roadway, then it's going to be up to those people to pay for this for the connection to it. Okay, and that's going to be determined at the time. Right now, we're still just on preliminary engineering, and I certainly know that there's, not an intent just maybe to make them so small that they only service 3 lots, but that is under discussion. It's not going to go any further than the three houses in that regard, and how much bigger it gets, because there's any number of houses on the west side that could connect. And that has an impact on the size of the pipe. And if we're not putting any municipal money into it, which we're not, then we're only going to be limited to a certain oversize. So it's not simple. If it was a municipal road project, then we would, of course, have looked at the entire thing. But we're at this stage of trying to get the 3 new lots online, and that's where we're at. There's certainly the intention from the Director of Public Works to take a look at Arthur Street as a whole, but it's certainly not in his capital budget for this year.
So it only has to come down one more lot because we're the last lot on that side of the street. But you're going to dig up the street, put it in for the 3 lots, and then sometime down the road when you get the money, which according to what I've heard isn't for another 3 or 4 years, then you're going to dig the road all up again and put the sewer pipe in so that the rest of us, if we want to, can connect to it. Is that correct?
So, Mr. Chairman, obviously we're having a discussion about the installation of sewer and water beyond the minor variance here.
I was gonna go into that. Yes, the application, it's the actual application that we're discussing here. If there's a discussion on furtherance of infrastructure, it's really, we're not council today. We're sitting as a committee. It's the Committee of Adjustments. We're here really to discuss anything that's kind of around planning. So again, we're getting into some conversation that, and it's very wholesome, but it's not really germane to the conversation, just to be respectful we have to be very cautious what we're doing with the Committee of Adjustments.
So we're just discussing the variance, but now it's gone off into other discussions, which we've now been discussing, but because I want the sewer to come to my house too, we won't discuss it.
Okay, well, at the Committee of Adjustments, we're dealing with the application before us. Your conversation, there is a proper place for that in apps. And I respect that. I just have to be very cautious as chair that we stay very germane to what we're discussing. Okay. Okay, ma'am, that's not, okay. There's a right place to hear what you're saying, and we would certainly hear that. You are here and you're, okay. Yes, no, what it was is a response to not holding the application up. I think it was the recommendation or the suggestion that people that want to develop the land present it just as a solution to get things rolling. That's why we went to the planner to try to find out, is that something they could live with? Now, as furtherance with that, the extension, that's another, that belongs at, well, it could be in front of council or a different meeting. That's all. And yes, we've heard your words. Anything any follow-up or any other things? Clerk, is that kind of where we need to go, sir? I'm looking for your advice on this, please.
Certainly through you, Chair, we do have a revised recommendation prepared for committee if committee is ready for that at this time.
Any other comments or questions from the public members? We have nobody else, anybody virtually that's raised their hand during this dialogue? Okay, so where we are now is decision by the committee, and that's obviously 6.3. And I will be looking to hear the recommendation or what we've added or deleted to this, and then we'll look for a mover seconder.
So through you, Chair Hutchinson, the recommendation is the same with the exception of clause 4 within that. So the new clause 4 reads that the owner be required to enter into an agreement with the municipality of West Gray requiring the installation of water and sanitary sewer services by the owner. But for that, the rest of the recommendation is the same. So I can read everything out if you'd rather, but
thank you, Clerk Eckles. We do have everything in front of us. Everyone has that. So all we do is just, we've just enhanced. It's not as amended. It's just you've inserted some new language on around number 4. Everyone clear with that? Is there any comments or questions on the recommendation before us? So I am looking for a mover to move that. And I do see Member Shea is going to move that. I'm looking for a seconder, please. Member Noon. Okay, comments, questions? And again, that's not as amended. It's just we've got some new words around 4. So call the vote. All those in favor, you can raise your hand, please. I see all members are in favor. There's none opposed. That motion has carried. Now I will go to Planner Smith. What would be the next steps under 6.4, please, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is a notice of decision will be issued. That will be issued for an appeal period. The notice of decision will go to the agencies, to the applicant in this particular case. And once the appeal period is over, they'll be able to come in and the number of conditions, as you noted on the decision sheet, would have to be satisfied. If the conditions are satisfied, they'd be able to get a building permit. Specifically going back to their comments, the clause, if I can clarify this, is that the agreement is over the sewer and water, right? That is the clicker for that. And that the septic system issue and so on and so forth is a discussion between themselves and the building department.
Okay, thank you, Planner Smith. Next item on today's agenda is item number 7, and that's application number B04 2024 Hagedorn -314746 Highway 6 Lot 7 Concession 1 WGR. 7.1 is the report from our planning staff. Planner Smith, if you could please present your report, including anything you would have received up to today's meeting that's not posted. Planner Smith, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you could bring up a quick picture on the screen. Thank you. So application B04 2024 Hagedorn. These lands are 314746 Highway 6 and access off of Welbeck Road and Highway 6. It's a corner lot. Purpose is to sever a 16-hectare, 39.5 acre rural and retain 20 hectares of 49 acres. It's already been through a consent back in 2021, B39 2021. Fortunately, that consent lapsed before the applicants were able to finish off the paperwork. And when it lapses on the due dates, on the dates, there's nothing I can do about it to revive it other than bring it back for consideration. And that's why we're here today. We did have a site-specific bylaw 19-2022 in March of 22. It is in force and effect for the lands. This application is identical to the one previously approved by the Committee of Adjustment in 2021. We didn't do any request for agency comment. It does cost them money, does take us some additional time. So we used the previous comments in that regard when we reviewed it and have written the report with that in mind. We didn't receive any comments from the public in terms of this application as of the date of writing a report. We need to still required to take a look at the Planning Act, the provincial policy statement, the County of Grey official plan, and the West Grey zoning bylaw in regards to the application to make sure that it still conforms and that it does conform to today's policies. There's always a possibility between 2021 and today that rules change. In this particular case, we're quite lucky that they haven't, and all of the previous review on that application is still valid and still applies to the application. Overall, we find that the application does meet the requirements of the Planning Act, the PPS, does conform to the policies of the County of Grey official plan, and does meet the requirements of the West Grey zoning bylaw. And we recommend approval of the consent based with the conditions established in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Planner Smith. 7.2 on the agenda is verbal comments. Again, there's two parts to this. 7.2.1 is the committee members, followed by 7.2.2, which would be the public or agent. And again, so I'm going to go to committee members. Do you have any comments or questions on this application? You see no committee members are looking to ask questions or comments, so we will move on to 7.2.2, public comments. And again, Ms. Noble, I'm going to ask you to let the public know virtually how they can participate. And if you can let me know after that, if we have anybody that has their hand raised or sent in a message before we go to the public in attendance.
If you have joined via phone, press *9 to raise your hand. This will let us know that you would like to speak. Alternatively, *9 can also be used to lower your hand. If you have joined virtually, you can either raise your hand by clicking either the blue or yellow hand icon located in the bottom corner of your screen, or by sending a chat message to myself, Ashley Noble, Communications Coordinator, either stating that you would like to speak or what you would like read into the record on your behalf.
Nobody's hands up or waving at you. Okay. All right, is there anybody in attendance here today in public that would like to speak to this? Okay. Seeing nobody in attendance that would like to speak to that, then we will go to, I guess, we're gonna move on to 7.3, and that's the decision by the committee. There is a recommendation, as you can see, that's on the agenda. Is there anybody that would like to make a motion on that? And I do see Member Eccles. Go ahead, sir.
I'll move the recommendation as presented.
Thank you, Member Eccles. I'm gonna be looking for a seconder. I see Member Townsend down there. You'll be seconding that, sir?
I will second that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Comments or questions on the recommendation as presented from the committee members? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor, you can raise your hand. All members are in favor, none opposed. That motion has carried. 7.4, Planner Smith, next step, sir.
There will be a notice of a decision for the consent with the conditions that you just established. There'll be an appeal period, even though it's been through this process before. There will be an appeal period again. Upon the conclusion of the appeal period, the applicant or the owners can come in and satisfy the conditions of the consent, pay the required stamping fee together with their lawyer at that time with the reference plan, and they will be finished.
Planner Smith. Item number 8 is the date of the next meeting. I believe will be June the 4th, 2024, at 2 p.m. And other than that, item number 9 is adjournment, and I do declare that we've completed all items on today's agenda, and we will stand adjourned at 3:06 p.m. Thank you very much, and have yourself a wonderful